Greetings, everyone. My name is Eric Barnes, and I am a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, initiated through the Alpha Beta chapter at Jackson State University in 2004, and currently a member of the Alpha Mu Sigma chapter in Arlington, Texas. So, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated was founded on January 9th, 1914 on the campus of Howard University. Our three founders, Honorable Abraham Langston Taylor, Honorable Charles Ignatius Brown, and Honorable Leonard Francis Morse, wanted to actually create an organization that was a little different than maybe some of what they saw that was already out there. There were a lot of great things being done prior to the inception of Sigma, but they really wanted an organization that dealt with being the inclusive we and not the exclusive we. And emphasis on our motto, culture for service, service for humanity, and also brotherhood, scholarship, and service. So really centered around those ideals and principles and making sure that we were including everyone and making sure everyone felt like they could be a part of the organization as opposed to being apart from the organization. I will say one of the biggest things that made me think about the organization when I got on Jackson State's campus, because of course that's where my introduction really sort of became, although that my godfather had actually went through the process and pledge in 1950. And he had passed away, and I did not know at the time that he was a Sigma. And so one of the things that came to mind as I was just discussing that is one of the reasons why I wanted to be a part of the organization. Looking at, you may not always see, but you can definitely hear us. And so what that means is on the campus, the interactions that happen with, at that time, Sigmas, later on my frat brothers, and sorors of Zeta Phi Beta, number one being how they treated one another, how they interacted on the campus with each other. Another thing, it doesn't hurt that we were the best steppers on the campus. We were pretty intelligent too. So, all those things, all that aside, that was always a plus, being an undergraduate student. But really looking at what was done in the community. For instance, during our intake process, actually having the opportunity to build a home for Habitat for Humanity. Part of our process is that we had to do service, i.e. culture for service, service for humanity. That was right in alignment with what expectations of Sigma Brothers were, and are. And so that is one thing, service to mankind, familial relationships, the interactions that happen there, and just an opportunity to be who you are. This Greek letter here being Sigma, as we know in math, that means it's a sum. So what does that mean? Sum of all. So that means you can be who you want to be and still be a part of, which is what the founders wanted it to be. You could be African American, you could be white, you could be Asian, you could be Hispanic. We have all of those brothers, all of the above. As in one of our honorary members happens to be former President Bill Clinton. So you could really be who you were to be a part of the organization to make a great good for this world. So those are the things, and I know that sounds very political, but that was really the thing. It's more than just about the stepping for me. Yeah, that was great. It was a part of it, being a part of the organization, getting in, the brand the yard, did the best stepping. Hey, some may disagree with that. We say check the numbers. Some of the things that really now I look at that really probably was an impact and did not understand as a 19-year-old then and almost 40 now, the impact. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I was into that right then, but some of the other things were more important. But now looking at that now. Our motto is culture for service, service for humanity. Cliche, right? Service, service, service. What does that look like? Actually being called to action to do something. Okay. And so some of those programs being social action is actually one of the programs. And with social action, partnerships with organizations such as SCDAA, I think I pronounced it around sickle cell, which a frat brother of ours who passed away, who was a chapter president in this area, who passed away from sickle cell, directly impacted. And then myself also having the trait of sickle cell, to know that brothers have that as something that has been a major concern. So therefore at the forefront. American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, definitely at the forefront of my mind because both of my parents passed away with cancer. So to have them pair with, have the brothers really partner with these organizations, March of Dimes, where we actually raise money for the babies every year, all through graduate chapters, undergraduate chapters alike. And anyone outside, we can set up pages and have anyone that is maybe not necessarily affiliated with our organization as a member or a sister member to Zeta Phi Beta, and can still donate to that cause. And then we also participate in the walk. So kind of like some of those social programs that we also we've had, you know, unfortunately tragedies that's been happening across our country with the deaths of our people. Brothers being forefront in marching with that and actually speaking out against it, and also, and not just necessarily with individuals of our ethnicity. One of our big pillars is scholarship. So what are we doing in terms of that? And under the scholarship umbrella is where you have the Sigma Beta Club. They have their own organization. They're their own brothers. They have their own little jackets. They have the little that actually have the Sigma and the Beta back. And 1950, their organization. They have conferences where they go and do leadership type of things at their conferences. They do sometimes a little local step competitions and things. They may go participate in some of those things. Especially we've had them here in the Metroplex. And with Sigma Betas, they are basically how we want to say your protege. You know, actually one of my line brothers was a Sigma Beta in high school, and then ended up later on going on to Pleasure Fraternity. So with that comes a lot of mentorship within that, teaching them how to be young men that will transition into grown men at some point. A spin-off from education, also a lot of the graduate chapters adopt schools, and in adopting a school, that's where you're purchasing school supplies. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's just a donation of your time. Again, another way to impact the community for them to see positive African American males, one side, but also positive Hispanic males, positive white males, because again, remember, our organization is inclusive, we not exclusive. And then bigger and better business. And bigger and better business, one of the biggest emphasis on that is actually supporting our own businesses. And what I mean by our own businesses, those that look like me, minoritized businesses. And the Black Success Spending, which is a big thing now. And so what that entails is it's actually going to a Black-owned business, spending your dollars in your Black-owned businesses, and then basically you turn in your receipts, and then brothers kind of calculate. And then at the end of the year, you get like this big total about how much money, from our organization that we spent in our businesses to try to keep our businesses open. Doesn't mean that we don't support other businesses, because sometimes people hear that, oh, well, what about it's not that you don't support the other businesses, but the emphasis is on the African American or the minoritized businesses. Other things such as the Phi Beta Sigma Credit Union. Actually, one of the only Black-owned banks in our country, Liberty Bank, that's housed in New Orleans, Louisiana. The founder of that bank is actually a frat brother. He is a Sigma. So again, we may not necessarily always be seen, but you will hear us. I consider myself to have some transformation because, for instance, you take being a 19-year-old initiated into the organization versus 40. Right? Very different person from then, even in all facets of life, financially, physically, because I was a lot slimmer back then than I am now. I was in the military, a lot slimmer, right? But even more importantly, spiritually, where 19, very different from almost 40, where I am even as a family man and spirituality in the process of that. And so that's what I mean by transform. To go a step further into that, I think of when mom passed away maybe 3 to 4 months prior to actually going through the intake process for Sigma. Very, very tough time in life. 19 years old, lost your mama. Life is terrible, right? Already as a teenager, all the things going on, and have that compounded to losing dad some years later. And as I mentioned previously, remembering on the day that my dad passed away, before 9:30 that morning, I think I had heard from like 8 of my 9 line brothers. And then within an hour later, the other one found out. And hey, bro, you okay? Hey, some of them weren't even in the state with me because I lived in Texas. And at that time, Most of them that are here now were not here then. But still, hey, you good? We got you. All the way to coming from out of town, from out of state, to show up to the service for the support. The familial relationships that you got then that is still now being fostered. Accountability. When I got ready to get married, although my parents were deceased, my frat brother shared with me, well, let's sit down and talk about what it means to be married and what that looks like. No, I will not snoot the prayer at your wedding until you understand what you're stepping into, right? Accountability. These are men holding men accountable. It's a family. That's the thing I want people to, if they don't hear anything else about this, being in the fraternity is a family, just like your own family. There's some people you see coming, oh, okay. There's some people like, oh my God, I'm excited to see you. You know, we'll be getting into. For me, luckily for me, it was a positive experience because of, again, the accountability. You know, when I became a new father, so my LB's, okay, bro, let's sit down, let's talk about this. Let me tell you about what you got to deal with, you know, coming down the pipeline on what you're going to deal with and how you deal with that. It's the, when you're going through, I can pick up the phone and I can call you. And as a man, sometimes it's not always celebrated in our community as African-American men to feel comfortable to have conversations with other people, but to know that you can have that conversation and it not go everywhere. Which is important for men, for an African-American male to be vulnerable to talk about mental health. We were taught to suck it up, be strong, you know, don't cry, that's weakness. So all those things encompassing, also education, and then I'm working on myself, health. And a lot of the brothers that are passing away and sorors to, you know, health, heart disease, kidney disease, cancer in some cases, that we know some of those things can be prevented with rest. Big thing is time management, time value, the value of others' time, including your own. Can't get back in our lives is time, right? That's the most precious thing. We have a lot of precious things, but the most precious thing that you can never get back is time. Patience. Okay. Now I still got some ways to go. The Lord is still working on dealing with different personalities. If you remember, I talked about it being a family, right? You're dealing with, you take my line, for instance, it's 10 of us on the line. We are all different. We all come from different walks of life. We all have different experiences growing up. And, you know, some people that should remain nameless was very, very, very strong-minded. So again, patience with that, you know, to get a task done. So how did I transfer that into education? In the classroom. When I became a principal, as a principal, I'm dealing with students' attitudes, parents' attitudes, teachers' attitudes, and how to manage all of that operation going on when it's just one person and you're the person that's responsible for it. Not realizing at that time until you just really asked me. I hadn't thought about it. 20 years of almost 20 years of being a Sigma. I just turned 19 in Sigma on February 6th. Just thought about that. Yeah, there were a lot of things that, far as business skills, that I did in undergrad, even in the first level of graduate school, that I actually used encompassing with my business degree as a principal. Managing budgets, because we had to manage our chapter budget. And it wasn't, you don't get this big pile of money. You get dues and you got this budget, and that's what you have to manage for these programs that you're doing. As a principal, you get this bucket of money. You have to manage that bucket of money to do the programs you want to do for your school. So I would say, looking at the transferability now with skills that I did in the organization and pair with my LBs too, in the classroom, in the school as a principal, with those that I serve and lead over. And servant leadership was one of the things that I think taught me the most, was having to understand that before you can lead, you have to follow. Transition to following as a teacher before I became an administrator, and then became an administrator, still having to follow a supervisor above me. So those are the things that I think that I look back on now, reflecting, that taught me. I always put them out there like, what? This is Vegas. What happened back in the day in college stays back in college. Thank the Lord for marriage and salvation. It definitely comes to mind. It is sad for me, but I'll talk about because it was impactful. It was powerful. My little brother, when we talked about sometimes having for me those relationships that may be even stronger sometimes in your actual blood family. We said blood is thicker than water, but there are times that water can run real thick, right? And blood can be real thin. My little brother, who was larger than life, one of those people. He stood about 6'5", 17 size shoe. Country is all get out. Wear a suit with a white sock on. Type of person that would just pick up the phone and just say, I ain't heard from you in a while. You know, what's going on? Between 33 and 34 was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And I mean, battle with it. I mean, this was a strong brother that when I didn't even realize how bad it was, he would say to me, he said to me, Eric, I want you to promise me that you'll be a pallbearer at my service. And wrote out his program. Just, that's the kind of person he was. Also an accounting major. So very methodical, and battled with it. I mean, you know, we were so close that each time it came back, I was probably one of the first people, if not the first person he called to tell. Because he battled with it like 3 times when it came back. And I remember maybe about a couple of weeks before he passed on to the Omega chapter, the brothers hosted a call where his mom set up. And the brothers got on a phone call. And basically what that call was for him to see, as weak as he was, because this is only maybe a week or so before he passed away. As weak as he was, to see the support that he had from brothers that would, you know, tell him they loved him to laugh and interact. And I'm talking like a large, and I'm not just talking about because he pledged in Spring 07, so 3 years behind me. But you brothers, my line, you know, those types of things, you know, before me, and brothers got on that call, basically. I hate to say it this way, but say their goodbyes because we knew that he was dying. And the love that you saw with men, and there were some ladies on the call too, but with men for him. And he then passed away. Of course, all of us devastated. Me being one of those people, even because the connectedness, my line brothers texted me, "E, you okay?" To see, even at his service, to see how people showed up. Because I remember during his burial, it had rained really bad, mud everywhere. I mean, but that did not deter people from getting their good Sunday shoes, dresses, and things to go out there to pay tribute to a person that was larger than life.
It was difficult. It was, again, that was like losing an actual blood brother. And so, of course, I carry, you know, we have things of his at our home that we carry, and we also carry him in our spirit. That's probably the biggest memory is seeing brothers come together for that brother who was extremely ill, because they knew how much he loved Sigma. Do your research. Make sure that is for you. And what I mean by that is it's a lifelong commitment. I mean, work happens in college, but the real work happens when you graduate. Do your research. Make sure that's what you want to do. Look beyond. Think about some of those people that you may know in your family or in your community or that you've seen, and see what they represent. Do they represent the organization that you want to be a part of? Because that is a part of life. That is for you. Once you're a member of it, that's your organization. It is to graduate, not just pledge the organization because I like the way the Sigma steps, so let me go through the intake process, and then I go through the intake process, and then I drop out of school. Because remember, the founders were college-educated men. Dr. Leonard Francis Morris, former president of Edward Waters College, where he found his buried in Jacksonville, Florida. Like these were college-educated men. So going to college, what that means is, if you're in high school, you gotta take care of your business. You need your grades so you can get into college. When you get into college, you gotta go to class so you can make the grade, because you do have to have a certain GPA to be a part of the organization. You can't just be, my GPA is a 1.9, I want to join. But over the years, I've seen interesting things where people want to come in. And my thing at that mind is we focus on scholarship. You not focused on scholarship. I need you to focus on the main thing first. Then we can help you. Yes, we are the inclusive we, but we also do have these things that we stand for as men. Right. We want to make sure that you are meeting that. And when you come in, so that's in high school, get your grades. Do community service beforehand. Don't do it just to do the intake process. Right. Be about that life. Helping your community, what it means. Stepping outside of your comfort zone. Volunteer at your church. Volunteer in the community. Go to the local, see if you can, participate in, being a pal for someone at the local nursing home. Go volunteer at the Children's Hospital. It may give you a different perspective on life too.
Yes.
Okay. So, and then how are you as a person? Are you living the way you should be living? Not saying necessarily me, I'm gonna say spiritually, right? Because it's the same man. And I want you to be at that point in your life, right? But I understand as a young man, you may not be there yet. But you also want to have good character.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you come around, people want to say they enjoy having you around. You want to be a good person.
Yes.
Right? And that's for any organization. But definitely in mine, because we are holding up high principles and we have high standards. And although there may be brothers that fall from time to time, that's where my job is as a current member in my accountability circle, those that are around me, to hold them accountable. So if that is, and if you have the opportunity to be a part of Sigma Beta, that's a great way to start. For me, what would I be? I don't think I would be successful. I wouldn't be where I am because the failures is what helped, as you mentioned, shaped. Now those helped shaped. But there are also failures that help transform too. Me into the person I am today, and striving to still be. Because again, I am now speaking to young people, but I'm in at that 40 mark. But then I have a whole section of life in front of me, right? So, and I'm still every day, it's something I'm like, failures mode. Yeah, I don't know who I would be. I would be successful. A person that held people accountable, loved family, and understood that, again, if you fail, get up.
That's right.
In my life, like I said, I've had lots of failures, I've had lots of disappointments, but the biggest thing is that the Lord allowed me to have the opportunity in the mind to get up. So what that means is the big thing, the legacy is that I love my family and friends, and that family includes my frats and my sorors as Zeta Phi Beta soror. That I love God with my whole heart, and that I strive to live to be the person that I tell others to be. And when you fall, those are the things that I want people to know. I got up when failures happened. I love God and my family, and I was about that life with education. Professionally, was in 2017 when I had the opportunity to get up in front of almost 700 seniors to deliver their kind of farewell speech from them as their senior principal. And about 120 of them I taught when they were 5th graders. So I was their teacher. I transitioned with them to the high school and became the administrator, and went in sophomore year, so I looped with them. Sophomore 11 and 12. So I saw them literally grow up from elementary into transition out. Personally, was being blessed to see the birth of my daughter. To be in the room, to be astonished at how the Lord works.
It's a beautiful thing.
To watch that transition from this little bitty dot on the screen to how God designed women, and my hat's off to y'all on how He designed the woman to be able to give birth and the beauty that comes in it. And so that's probably my proudest moment, of being blessed to have shared that with my wife, who God gave to me. We say keep God first as a cliche sometimes. but not understanding when we say keep God first, it's not just necessarily first just in your life, in your marriage, in your thoughts. Keep God first in everything you do. As the word says, and always acknowledge Him, and He'll direct your path. And that came from my godparents, who are also deceased now, but my godfather that I mentioned that pledged in 1950, the Alpha Beta chapter, and my godmother, his wife. That just, I can distinctively still see that conversation and remember his voice telling me that. So, and of course I've heard that scripture a million times over, but it was just from him because he was a person that walked it. Oh, that's the only thing that's been sustaining. Again, with failures, you know, that's been the thing to get you to get up, right? It has been the thing that's been constant. That's career, that's family, that's you know, relationships, whether both love relationships or, you know, interpersonal relationships, professional relationships. That's the only thing that is constant. And even if it feels like something's not right, He'll give you that sign to say this is the direction you should. The only thing I would just say is, again, we talked about faith, just keeping that at your forefront, keeping God at the head of everything, and everything else will fall in place.